and then I'll start sharing my screen. Is the PowerPoint slide visible to everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me see. So we'll have a very quick recap of previous
Excuse me, sir.
class. Yes, please go ahead.
Could you please make everyone attendees, sir? Because we are getting removed.
Sir, they're
All,
constantly removing.
all right, all right. So I'll do that. Just hold for a second. So in previous class, I made an appeal to the whole class that, I expect you all. Am I audible now? Can somebody respond? Can somebody respond? Okay, so
Yes, sir. You're audible.
all right. So actually, and what about the problem of people removing some people removing others? Is that solved now?
Yes, sir.
All right. So uh, actually, in previous class also, I made this appeal to everybody that we are uh, discussing something which is more related to change in our behavior pattern, and it's not something which is related to just gaining marks and scoring or something more professional in nature. So it's about and we're studying something which is called cultural studies, and if we do not behave like a cultured people, just mere discussions about all this stuff does not make sense. So I've been telling you that if whatever we are discussing, it is not being reflected in our personality, this it's a just wastage of our all the resources, the kind of effort and the many things. So if in today's class again I have changed the setting, but in the maybe after 2-3 classes, I'm going to remove these restrictions, and maybe I expect you all to be, self-disciplined people rather than just imposing discipline from my side. And this is what I expect. If that is not happening in the upcoming classes, maybe I'll consider it as my own failure, and maybe I'll request the college to change the section. So just keep this thing in mind. If even a single person in our classes, if they are not feeling okay with these discussions or whatever things we are doing, I do not blame them. I'll rather consider it as my own a failure to bring some positive elements in students. And then maybe there's no point just discussing, just doing lip services for culture and religion and spiritual tradition. So this is the least thing I'm expecting. Somebody was muting constantly, me also, and I could have done the setting, that only me as a presenter, but it's just I'm watching the behavior of nowadays you are no more school students, and after a few years you are going to take huge responsibility of your family and yourself, and if that discipline is not coming at this stage, there is no point of talking about culture and tradition. So every morning we do our college prayer and we say this, Sahviryam Karvavahi. We should put effort together for all these. Just mere teacher putting all the efforts from his side and parents, and if there's no effort from student side, the outcome won't be there. Clapping sound cannot come from just one hand. Both hands to be put together. So similarly, Sahviryam Karvavahi. We should put the effort together. And if that is not happening, then it's not just your failure, but it's also my responsibility, and I consider more it is my own maybe there is something lacking in my own teaching, and that is why it is not being imparted to you. So if you would feel something, that okay, this is not proper, maybe you can just text me, and I will, as I said, I will never mind that somebody has given some feedback. But if you just keep behaving like a childish behavior, if it is that is what is keeping happening, then what is need of talking about culture and tradition? Anyways, so having said that, because a kind of mindset which is required for discussing these sorts of subjects, we are not merely discussing something related to some technical subject or something which is mere about technical course, the way we I think some is there some problem again? Somebody is removing. I can see some. Is it still happening? So
No, sir.
No, sir.
no. Okay. All right. So but these all things can be tracked. Mind you, I am a trained software engineer, and this hacking and other things, we can track each and every action of you people because you have logged in through server, and we can exactly pinpoint the people those who are doing all these sorts of things. But personally, I do not feel like doing all this because that's not something a person like me would like to do. To just taking some disciplinary action or something. So let us see, let us watch how our discussions are developing, and we'll see the upcoming classes. So sorry for again discussing all these things. Very quickly, we'll go through the whatever we discussed. We discussed how this cultural knowledge of cultural and other traditions are beneficial to us, and how this can be used for developing diplomatic relations with other countries, other people, the people we meet, people from one village to another village, people from one state to another state, people from one country to other country. So the more we know about our own culture, and the more we are rooted in our own culture, the more we can influence other people. For example, in today's class, we are going to discuss about how masters, great saints from South Indian states, they have, they have spread the tradition and philosophical things of India, not India, of South India to rest of India. And we have also discussed in previous classes how people from India has disseminated various language, culture, tradition, religion across the Asia. So we discussed how things have spread in China from India, from Japan, from the contributions of ancient people and the scientists, and they have recognized the Indian contribution. So we'll very quickly jump into the today's lecture. So these are the 4 South Indian states, and we discussed people, the great saint of Advaita Vedanta. So actually, it's only the Vedantic tradition which is surviving in Indian subcontinent. We have 6 philosophical tradition in India, great philosophical tradition, namely Sankhya 1, Yoga 2nd, Vaisheshik 3rd, Nyaya 4th, Mimamsa 5th, Vedant 6th. I expect that you all people are sitting with pen and paper. So you also are supposed to sit with pen and paper, and you need to take some notes. For example, for your exams, certain things, information and facts and data, these details are required. So just I enumerated 6 schools of philosophy, the name of 6 schools of philosophy which originated in India. There are the total number is 9, but just 6 which I just talked about, they are Vedic philosophy. They accept Vedic system as authoritative system. So in English, we call them theistic school. In Sanskrit, we call them Astik Darshan. So 6 schools of philosophy: Sankhya, second is Yoga, third is Vaisheshik, fourth is Nyaya, fifth is Mimamsa, sixth is Vedanta. 6. Now, if you have some confusion in spelling, some confusion in the about these names, you can just Google 6 schools of philosophy, and you'll get all the details. More detailed description from internet. You get all these data and details and facts. So you can get the details, and if you have some doubt, you feel free to ask me, because this is not a part of our curriculum, but still it's a important thing to know. So out of these theistic schools, and the rest 3 are Jainism, Buddhism and Charvak, those who do not accept the authority of Vedic system. So 6 theistic, 3 non-theistic. This Charvak darshan, Charvak school of philosophy, we call philosophy, in Sanskrit we call philosophy darshan. That's the Sanskrit name. So Charvak philosophical system is no more existing in India, but it's a more kind of, the materialistic worldview. So that all the kind of present day people, those who do not believe in rebirth, those who believe in only material world as reality, they all can be considered to belonging to Charvaka school. Charvak is another one name of one school of philosophy, the name of one school of philosophy. So Charvak, the school does not believe in the Vedic tradition. Buddhism and Jainism also, they do not, accept the authority of Vedic system. So that is what make them distinct from other these 6 schools of philosophy. Now, having said that, Buddhism, Jainism, and Charvak, they also originated in India. So they have also a huge impact on the philosophical system of India. And they were debating with other schools. And these theistic schools also, they debated, they argued against each other. They were not fighting in that sense, but they were developing to the contribution of the whole knowledge system. So, and this was through argument. And Amartya Sen, this Nobel laureate, has written a book, Argumentative Indian, and he is named because how in ancient India, people used to give so much importance for reasons of life, so not accepted blindly. So even the theistic system, especially the Nayayik, the Nyaya system, they developed a whole system of logic and reasoning just to establish the existence of God. Because there were Charvaka and Buddhist and Jain, they denied the creator God concept. So that's another thing. Anyway, so we are entering into today's subject matter, which is about how the philosophical system has contributed to rest of India. So around 9th century, now historically speaking, around 9th, 10th century, other schools of philosophy were in decline. And 12th century onwards, there was huge invasion from outside. And it destroyed all the established centers of learning. All the monastic university and other systems were destroyed. So this resulted into vanishing of Buddhism from rest of India. It resulted into not just other schools of philosophy also vanished from India. But fortunately, because South India is from 3 sides, it is protected from the sea. So in southern India, these traditions were preserved to some extent, and mostly it was the Vedantic tradition which got saved in some. So Vedanta, this only school of philosophy out of these 6 theistic schools, Buddhism survived in outside of India. Vedanta is the only philosophical system which has unbroken lineage since its ancient time. So Vedanta has also got several divisions in it. So Advaita Vedanta, Adi Shankaracharya, one of the great proponents of this system. Vedanta was existing from ancient time, but Adi Shankara gave it another specific form, and it's called Advaita Vedanta. And now Ramanujacharya from Tamil Nadu, he is proponent of the same Vedantic system, but he developed another school. It is called Visishta Advaita. So Visishta Advaita. Visishta means something specific. So he's arguing against Adi Shankara. So he's not, agreeing with the explanation of Adi Shankara, and he's developing another system of philosophy within the Vedantic system only. So it is called Visishta Advaita. Then came Madhvacharya from Karnataka. He said he did not agree with these two peoples. He gave a third system of the same Vedantic system. Brahma Sutra. They all wrote their own commentaries on a text, authoritative text called Brahma Sutra. Remember this name, Brahma Sutra. The founder of Vedanta is Badarayana Vyas. You know, the Vyas, some people believe it's the same Vyas who composed Mahabharata, but some people do not agree with that. Anyway, he's called Vyas. So Badarayana Vyas wrote, authored this Brahma Sutra, which is the founding, which has got the founding doctrines of Vedantic system. And these all people interpreted that Brahma Sutra there in their own way. So they gave a unique interpretation of that particular text, which formed a school of Advaita Vedanta, Visishta Advaita Vedanta, Dvaita, Vada Vedanta, and Shuddha Advaita. So 4 schools of Vedanta. Now, interestingly, as I said, it's only Vedantic system which is surviving in, of course, yoga is also surviving, but not in an unbroken lineage. Nowadays, all the yoga, those who are proponenting, including the Patanjali, the institution which is founded by Baba Ramdev, one of prominent yoga guru of our time. But there is no unbroken lineage of yoga school. So Patanjali was its founder. He has named the whole system after this. But there is no unbroken system of yoga system. But Vedanta has got unbroken lineage. No, from one generation to another generation, the system has survived. So, this 4 schools are existing in contemporary time. And you go to any ancient temple in India, you will find that one of these saints, one of these schools, all the temples, they'll belong to one of these schools, if it is an ancient temple. So, and as I said, these 4 great saints are from South India. So you go to Badrinath, as I said, the priest of Badrinath, the only people, those who are permitted to touch the idol and do the inner worship, are people from Kerala. Nambudri Brahmins are only, for last 1000 years. It's only certain families, because the system was established by Adi Shankaracharya. So only Nambudri Brahmins are authorized to do the inner sanctum sanctorium worship. So although Badrinath is far remote corner in Uttarakhand, you can see it's high hills in Himalayas, very, very far from, but from almost 1200 years, it is priests from Kerala, they are worshipping. So how these all things happen? You go to Rajasthan, another, Nath Dwara, one of the very rich temple. After this Tirupati temple, this is another, the second most richest temple in Nath Dwara. And this belongs to the Vishuddha tradition, Vallabhacharya, who was from Telangana and Andhra Pradesh region. So Vallabhacharya. So all these different schools, they belong, temples, they belong to one or other tradition which has its root in southern India. It has its root in southern India, so that's important point to note, that it was these people, and when they established their schools in these different regions of India, they took the whole also the system of South India to these places in the rest of India. So very similarly, the way this the Chinese scholar is saying that India has conquered and dominated China culturally for 12th century without ever having sent a single soldier across the border. Similarly, these great saints, they also conquered rest of India through their wisdom tradition, through their knowledge system, through contributing something to it. They were, they did not impose their doctrine or religion, and people accepted them. of course, for example, this Adi Shankara is famous for he was a fierce debater. He used to debate with, there is a story that he came to Bihar, the state to which I belong, and he debated with one of the Mimamsaka, great scholar. And, he was able to defeat him. And in those days, if somebody is able to defeat in the debate, the other, opponent will become his disciple. So that was the condition. And not only that person, the whole his disciple will also be becoming, will go to that school. So he defeated a great Mimamsaka scholar from Mithila region. And then this is something, although I'm digressing a bit, but still something very relevant. So then the wife came, that person's name was Mandan Misra. So Adi Shankaracharya debated with this great saint, a great scholar, great philosopher, Mandan Misra. And when he defeated him, his wife, came. His wife's name was Bharati. And she said that you have, I'm called Ardhangini. I'm half of my husband. So if you defeated half only, the better half is still there and you have to argue with me. And then that great lady, she started debating, and she knew that this Adi Shankaracharya is a celibate, Bal Brahmachari. So the story says that she started, discussing about all the erotic arts, and which Adi Shankara had not at all any knowledge of that. And then because Adi Shankara was not able to argue on that matter, he asked for some permission that let me give some time. I'll gain some knowledge about it. And then it is said that he left his body.
He got into some king, no sir, that only, no sir, that story.
Yes.
Yes.
It is said that he entered into body. At that time, the king of Kashi died, and then because of his yogic sciences, he knew how to enter into somebody else's body, and he entered into that the king of Kashi's body. And from that entering into king's body, because the king was had a very luxurious life, having many wives, and so he learned all the erotic arts, entering into that king's body. And again he came back and was able to argue and defeat this Bharati. But still he had a great respect for that particular lady, and there is a whole lineage of Bharati people. So he considered that lady as a mother figure, as Saraswati. So anyway, so just to highlight that how important this debate tradition, the logic tradition was. People accepted others only on the basis of reasoning. It was not blind faith. Anyway, so this Advaita Vedanta, that is how it was. He was able to establish across the. If you go to nowadays in it is Pak occupied Kashmir, POK, but there in Kashmir, up higher Kashmir, there used to be a great Sharda Peeth, and that was considered to be the highest seat of learning in ancient time, and he was honored there. It is said that the gates opened for him, anyway. So I'm trying to highlight the person from Kaladi. I've been to these places, Kaladi from Kerala, and going to the highest, in those days like Kashmir, walking, and not just, and he was able to establish this 4 dham, 4 dham, the great seats of learning. Badrikashram. In the Gujarat, he established Dwarka Peeth. In the eastern side, in the Puri, in Odisha, there is a Jagannath Peeth. And in the southern part, we have a Kanchi and Rameshwaram and Sringeri, great seats of Adi Shankara. So all these 4, and from that time onward, it was a tradition that all the people of India, they are supposed to visit these 4 dhams. So this pilgrimage, going to holy places, was another effort to integrate India. So, for example, like almost 27 years back, I came to to Rameswaram and these places in southern India with my grandmother. My father took my grandmother to these places. So this was the tradition. When mother or parents are getting old, the son is supposed to take their parents to all these, at least these 4 places, important places. So my father took, when I took my mother to these places. So in ancient time, nowadays, that this journey has become very, easy. We can take flights, we can take trains. But in ancient times, it was very, very a tiresome journey from traveling maybe almost thousands of kilometers on foot. My great grandfather, he has traveled to these places, to many places on foot. Almost, he did thousands of kilometers of walking. And this is it's not something I'm saying I read somewhere in the book. It's my own first hand knowledge. So people used to travel a lot, and that is how the India was being united. So this was the tradition, and all these were done by these great saints because they were able to establish, they were able to unite India. And mind you, these people, Adi Shankara was a Kerala person, must have composed great things in those days. We do not know that what form of Malayalam existed, but in local languages. But the importance which was given to Sanskrit literature by these people was another factor to integrate India. Because Sanskrit was a kind of link language in ancient days. We have almost, in Malayalam, almost 40% of, vocabulary, the words are common from Sanskrit and in Malayalam, almost 40%. Similarly, in Tamil, in Telugu, in Kannada, so lots of common words are there, which are common in Sanskrit and in these regional languages. So they preferred Sanskrit not at the cost of their own language, but to spread their wisdom and system of knowledge. So Sanskrit became another factor for integrating in India in ancient time, and that is how they were able to do so. And that is another reason why we should have some knowledge of Sanskrit, because our ancient wisdom is preserved in that particular language. But nowadays, thanks to the technological advancement and lots of things have been translated into English. So nowadays we can do so by disseminating our wisdom tradition through English also, because things have changed now. So we can do something through English too, but not at the cost of our own mother tongue as well as Sanskrit, not at that cost. We need to have roots in these things too. So you go to, as I said, go to Badrinath or go to Nath Dwara, and even you go to Nepal or Bhutan, these in Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu, which is capital of Nepal, again the priests are from South India. Also, if you go to Bhutan, there is a very revered figure called Guru Rinpoche. He is also called Guru Padma Sambhava. And nowadays, people have discovered that he belonged to Kanchi from Tamil Nadu. So, another great seat of learning in ancient time. So, in today's class, we'll also very quickly we'll have discussion on the the cultural studies booklet, which I have already shared with you. You are supposed to read, go through it. I'll just within next 5-10 minutes I will finish. Give some overview of the heading. You can go through it on your own. So there's a one topic. The chapter 1 is to the world from India, and there is a discussion on India's contribution to astronomy. So astronomy, there is a difference between astronomy and astrology. Can somebody tell me what is the difference? Astronomy, astrology.
Sir, astronomy means study of space and the space. I mean, the things in space, as sun, moon, like that. Astrology means that is. I know the meaning in my mother tongue, but I don't. That only I know in
Sir,
mother tongue.
sir, astrology is like study of these celestial bodies effect on our daily life.
Wonderful.
Sir, a man's future and their faith, sir. Astrology means study of.
How the celestial bodies position will impact our lives, sir.
Okay, wonderful. We have received 3 responses. Can you, Aditya, can you tell me more about it? How it affects our life? Is there any concrete proof?
Sir?
Is there any concrete proof that astronomical bodies, celestial bodies are affecting our daily life? How can you say that?
Sir, it's through like I believe that through many through interpreting and analyzing many cases, they have come to conclusions that in a particular position for a particular person, it affects in a particular way. They have made certain rules and they are proceeding through them, sir.
Wonderful. Yes, that's a correct approach. What Aditya is saying, I'll elaborate it in a more further way. Let me tell you, I'm just taking just one case study. In astrology, if you go to astrologer with your birth chart, he will see the moon's position, and if the moon is in bad position in your birth chart, he will say that this person has got some problem related to mind, like some people, the person who has got bad placement of moon in his birth chart according to astrological observation. Birth chart means planetary position when a person is born. So birth chart you might have seen in your family, or those who have not seen, doesn't matter. Birth chart means, suppose somebody is born right now, 30th of March at 2 o'clock 27. So now if a baby is born, his birth chart will be like the sun, moon, Jupiter, Mercury, whatever they're positioned at this moment in the space, that thing will be calculated and will be placed on a chart. So that is what is known as birth chart. Now, based on that, astrologer will say something. So one principle is, if moon is placed in a bad shape, a bad place. Bad place means it has there are certain malefic planet, such as Saturn. If Saturn is looking at the moon or something, some disturbance is there. So the astrologer will say this baby boy, when he grow up, might have some problem related to mind, will be very angry person, or might get depressed, something related to mind. Now, how this can be proved, or this is just belief system or a blind belief? Let us discuss this. So, in Latin, mad people are called lunatic. Lunatic people means mad people, and lunar means moon. Lunar eclipse we call, no, when moon is a lunar eclipse happens. Lunar means Chandra. Lunatic means mad people. Another there is a tribal group of tribal people in Madhya Pradesh, in central part of India. They, in their language, they call mad people Chand Mara, hit by moon. Chand means moon, Mara means hit. So Chand Mara, somebody is hit by moon. Chand Mara. In Latin, they are calling lunatic. In tribal people are calling mad people Chand Mara, moon has hit him. In human blood, in our own body, we all, there is a, circulation of blood. Now, this blood circulation, people, those who have studied medicine, they know that the blood circulation, or what we call blood pressure, has certain effect on our mind. When blood pressure is high, the person will feel, very angry or anxious. Now the ratio of salt and water, blood is salty in nature. So there is a salt in our blood also. So the ratio of blood, water and salt in our blood is the same as, the ratio of salt and blood, salt and water in the sea, in the oceans and sea. It's a salty water. It's a very almost the same ratio of salt and water is there. The way it is there in our blood, and it is in our it is there in the sea and ocean. Now the fishermen, those who sail in the go for fishing, they know this, that on full moon night the sea waves will rise, the tide will be very high on full moon night, and on the Amavasya, or on the dark moon, when there is no moon in the sky, the sea waves will be very low. The people, those who study this madness, and in lunatic, there are Iceland where mad people live. The doctors have observed this, that on full moon night, the kind of severity in the mad people is very high on the full moon night, and then on Amavasya, on the this no moon, the severity is very less. If you know this story of werewolves and these vampires, that is also something related to werewolves will become werewolf only on the full moon night, something. So all this madness has something to do. It has been observed empirically. It's not something just mere blind belief. It has been observed that there is some connection with the moon and the mind, human mind. And it is not just happening in India. As I said, it's even tribal people are observing it. Even in the Latin, it is being observed. Even the medical science is observing it. Even it is happening in the nature, because on the full moon night the sea waves are rising high. Similarly, on full moon night the blood pressure, the blood is going high in the our own body. Whether we know astrology or we do not know, that's not going to make any effect. But finally, it is our body is being affected by these things. So we cannot deny this. So in ancient time, people observed all this, and based on that, they developed a science. That does not mean I'm not ever saying that you should have blind belief in astrology. You should go and become mere go and get looted by these. There are several fraud astrologers, those who do not know, just they will fool the people and they'll take the money in the name of astrology. I'm not recommending that you should go to astrologer and ask for the future prediction, but there is certain element of science and empirical observation in it. It was just not mere a blind belief system, astrology. So people
Excuse
have
me,
done.
sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, I have a small doubt.
Yes.
I don't think it is a good or not, but just asking. Many people will say that at the time of solar eclipse, people should not go out, especially pregnant women should not go out. Is it true or false, sir?
Again, this is not a blind belief, or it's not true or false kind of thing. It is believed that in solar eclipse, whenever it is happening, there are certain radiations which is not so good. So if there is which might affect our own eyes, so it has been observed. So this happens in nature also. Whenever solar eclipse is happening, especially the like a major one, I've seen through my own eyes. Solar eclipse is happening. All these birds and animals, they will feel somewhat anxious. Because in the nature something unexpected is happening. Sun is about to set on in the evening, but something sun is setting at a like it's not sunset, but the sunlight is diminishing unnaturally. So something unnatural is happening. So the whole nature is getting affected from it. let me tell you another thing, that after every 10 years, we know that this is nuclear fission which is happening on the sun. It's a nuclear explosion which is generating heat in the sun. So this has been observed by scientists that after every 10 years, this nuclear fission or explosion is increased for for some time. So there is a cycle of 10 years after which this will increase again. After 10 years again it will increase. And those who study this, there is a science of studying trees. So if you cut a tree stem, there will be circles through which you can determine its age of tree. So how many concentric circle, each concentric circle represent 1 year. So it has been observed from big trees that after 10 years, that ring which is formed is slightly thicker. Now we are getting affected by the radiation of sun, every day, and after 10 years that we are being affected. So similarly, during the solar eclipse also, because something unnatural is happening. Unnatural means which it is a natural thing, but it is a kind of exceptional thing which does not happen every year or every day. So nature gets affected. So similarly, people in ancient time, they said that okay, pregnant women and even because something is being unusual thing is happening in the nature. So something unusual will happen within our body also, whether we know it or not, where we consciously observe it or not. So they made these rules that no, God will get angry or some great sin will incur. So they said no, do not go out because
Sir, means
God
like they will say the baby inside the womb of mother will be affected, no sir?
Yes, maybe there is a chance of that, because the radiation might affect. That's very much possible. So that is why these sorts of restrictions were made. But again, having said that, if somebody knows about all these signs, they can take this, if somebody know how to protect themselves with this radiation, so is taking all the precaution, maybe if needed, they can go out also. We should not just become a blind believer. No, if it is not permitted, so even some emergency medical need is required and it is solar eclipse, so we should not go out. We should not become that much dogmatic or blind believers, but we should take extra measures and extra precautions during those times. That is almost certain that we need to take extra care. So yeah.
Sir, you are telling due to the full moon, the high tides will be caused.
Yes.
Sir, I think it's because of the gravitational pull of the
Exactly.
moon. Since it's closer,
Exactly.
it pulls that side of the Earth's water more.
Yes, that is the reason. A high tide. I'm just pointing out that those, a gravitation of moon is affecting our blood too. Consider all the 6 billion people on the earth. They are a kind of, their blood is a kind of. Mad people are getting affected more severely. So attacks are coming more. Yeah. Some more questions? So I think that time is almost up now. So we will end the class here, and maybe we'll continue these discussions in the next class. Any more questions?
No, sir.
Sorry, somebody unmuted mistakenly. Some noise is coming. So any more questions?
No, sir.
Okay. So fine, we'll call it a day for today. and maybe you explore something more on these sides, and maybe we'll continue our discussion in the next class related to the other things, metallurgy and art and architecture and other things related to the first chapter. And meanwhile, you go through, you read the first chapter. It's very lucidly written, easy to read. So you can gain some knowledge from the cultural booklet. From exam point of view, that cultural booklet is very, very important. So, okay, thank you, everybody. We'll call it a day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You can leave the meeting. I've taken attendance.
Sir, please stop
Yes.
the recording, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.